Hello, everyone. Just bear with me. We've got a few more people joining us today. So just wait a couple of seconds and then we will get started and talk about the withdrawal of the Spanish Golden Visa and what that means to you. Yeah, just bear with me a couple of seconds and then we will get started. Right. Okay, let's get going then. There's still people joining, but what we're going to do is we will send out a copy of this webinar when it's finished. So if you do miss any information, and obviously you will have that. Just to give you a bit of housekeeping, my name's Sam Daines. I'm a senior wealth manager here at Holborn Assets. And today, see, we're going to talk about the withdrawal of the Spanish Golden Visa. We've had a number of questions about this because obviously it's a very much a hot topic. We know it's being withdrawn. The last bit of information we had was the beginning of April, which I'll come on to. And we have had a bit of news last week in terms of timescales and what that may mean in getting things through. So feel free to ask any questions. I had a lot of questions sent at the beginning. So when people have registered, they sent some questions in. So I will cover them at the end. And if there's time, I'll cover any other questions. But as I say, I won't do that to the end because I'm sure I will go through a lot of what you're going to ask. Various other things on here. Please, you've got my WhatsApp number there. Make a note of that. It's a UK number. I am actually based here in Spain. I'm in the south of Spain here. It's boiling hot today. But that's my number there. It's a UK number. But if you save that, you can contact me on WhatsApp if you have any questions. You've also got my email underneath that, which is sam.daines@holbornassets.com. So feel free to ask me any questions about your personal situation. Or if you want to book an appointment, you can email me or you can scan the QR code, which you see at the top. Now, if you scan that, that will access my diary. For obvious reasons, we're very busy at the moment because we've got a load of people now moving with the Spanish Golden Visa because it's being withdrawn. It's the time of trying to get it through in time. So my diary is relatively booked. However, if you send me an email, I will try to fit you in. And I am also aware that if you scan the QR code, it's the office hours here in Spain, which may not suit you if you are at the other side of the world or in the USA or wherever you may be. So we can do out of office appointments if required. So as I say, I will send a copy of this out at the end. But you've got my contact details there. Please make a note of that. And we will crack on and we will talk about the withdrawal of the Spanish Golden Visa and what that means. So the way we do that then, first of all, I'll just give you a sort of brief background around who we are and what we do, because it's important to know how we're sitting here in front of you and what we can offer you in terms of doing the Golden Visa. I'm going to tell you now what the changes are. As I say, you might be picking bits of information up over the internet. We have actually got a concrete bit of information last week. So we now know some timescales on this. So it helps us very much in understanding whether we're going to have time in order to get applications through for people. The good news is we do. But you'll see from the timings when I come on to that we still have to be careful. I have to make sure that we have enough time. I'll talk about a little bit about what residency by investment is. So to get the residency, to get the Spanish Golden Visa, what does that actually mean? What is the Spain Golden Visa program? What that actually gives you? What the process and the benefits are of that? And I'll give you some examples of what you can do to get the Golden Visa and what we can do to help you get the Golden Visa through real estate. Now, real estate is by far the most popular way of getting the Golden Visa, quite simply because it is the cheapest option. But as we know, that's going to be removed. And then at the end, I'll go through the questions that I've had. Obviously, if you've got any other questions, feel free to ask them. I'll try to answer them at the end. But if not, then obviously you can send me a WhatsApp or you can send me an email directly and I can answer them for you. So as I say, I'll put my details up again at the end of the presentation. So make a note of that. And obviously you can contact me and we will send you a copy of this presentation out in case you have to go or you miss any of it. Okay. So just a little bit about us before I go on about the changes. We're Holborn Assets. We're a global wealth management firm. So we started back in 1998. So we've been going over 25 years now. We're a British family firm. We've got over 500 employees and we work out of 20 international offices. So including one here in Spain. So I'm based in the south of Spain. So we're in the Malaga region down in the south. And I've been here around 6 years, so for a long time. We have offices in, not just here, obviously we've got offices in Portugal, in the UK, offices in South Africa, in Dubai. So we position ourselves globally so we can offer people financial advice when they move around. So that financial advice includes things such as investments, pensions, mortgages, insurances, all that sort of thing. So we are a wealth management financial advisory firm. Started around 26 years ago. We've now got around 25,000 clients around the world. We're fully regulated in all the jurisdictions that we operate in, which is really, really important. And the reason for that, as I say before, is if people move, which they do from one country to another country, we can actually give them financial advice. So anybody here looking to move to Spain, when you move to Spain, we can actually help you get your finances in order to make sure that they're Spanish compliant and they're set up in the best possible way. So me, myself, I moved here around 6 years ago. I previously worked for HSBC in the UK, Wesleyan Assurance, Nationwide Building Society in the UK, giving financial advice, so from everything from investments to pensions, all manners of different financial advice, property as well, mortgages. And I moved over here, made the move to Spain around 6 years ago. It's a fantastic place to live. I've been through the process of getting residency here, so I know the sort of the difficulties you can encounter. So I have first-hand experience of that. But in terms of how I'm now talking about golden visa in front of you, it's basically around sort of around 7 years ago now. We noticed that a lot of our clients really wanted the benefit of having good investments, but also being able to actually have the benefits of global mobility. So to use an investment in order to utilize, for example, particularly Europe, and being able to have residency, to have the golden visa so they can move around. Where this benefits us as a company is that we first and foremost look at the investments, make sure that we're looking at the best investments for our clients. So we would do that, but also we can actually tag the golden visa onto that and actually get you a golden visa as part of that. And it's been incredibly successful. We've had quite literally thousands of applications processed. Last year, we were the number one provider of the Portuguese golden visa in the world in terms of getting applications through. Portugal was traditionally the most popular option, but last year, Portugal removed real estate as a way of qualifying for the golden visa. So that will obviously slow down the interest in Portugal. However, with Portugal, you can still invest into investment funds and various other investments or banking products that can give you the golden visa. And you can do it for 500,000 and sometimes less. So it's still popular, but you don't have property as an option. As a company, since we've started doing the golden visa, we've had 100% success rates. No applications that we've taken on have we not been able to get through. So we have first-hand experience. We know how to get applications through. We know what we need. And that is vital now, particularly with the Spanish golden visa being withdrawn, because we need to make sure that we can get things through in time. As a company, we've won numerous industry awards. We've got an excellent reputation on Trustpilot as well. So dealing with us, you should have confidence in what we do. But as I say, it works hand in hand, being a wealth management financial advisory firm and actually offering the golden visa. So that's a little bit about us. Now, I think what a lot of people really want to know is what are the changes? What does that mean to you? So if you take a step backwards, as you all know, or I'm sure you know watching this, that Pedro Sanchez, the Spanish Prime Minister, back in April, so this was some time ago, announced that he was going to take measures to eliminate the golden visa program. The main reason for this was due to the correlation with an increase in house prices. Now, this in itself is a completely different topic. If you look into the actual facts and the details, I would argue that it had little effect on the housing market. I think it depends on the estimations you use, but around 0.25% housing transactions last year had a golden visa attached to them. So that's 0.25. So obviously, by eliminating the golden visa, it's still going to have a housing price affordability issue. But I think it was more a political statement, a new government coming in, looking to do something about the economy and the measures to lower house prices. And I think that really is why it has been brought in. So anyway, that we can't change that. They've announced that's what they're going to do. But then since April the 9th, when that announcement came in, we've heard nothing. It's just gone silent. And here in Spain, if you live here, you will realise things do take a while sometimes to get done and to get put into place. And this is an example of one of those. However, on the 24th of July, an update was finally announced, which does outline the timescales for withdrawal. So as of today, and I will reiterate this, as of today, it still remains exactly the same. The rules and what I will talk about in this presentation are the same. Nothing has changed, but we know it will be. And in terms of how it will be changed, this slide is really, I've cut and pasted this because we only had this sort of hot in. So basically, as it stands at the moment, we are still in what they call a phase. It's an amendment phase at the moment. So nothing's going to happen. Everything at the moment will stay the same. Now, they've announced that this amendment phase that we're in at the moment will remain open until September the 4th. Okay, so we're now right at the end of July. So we've got August. September the 4th, that amendment phase will end. And in Spain, what happens is that will then change into a legislative process, which will start no earlier than September the 9th. So we know on September the 9th is when really we're going to start seeing this evolve and move on. Now, we don't know exactly how it's going to be done in terms of putting through the proposal. As we understand it, they're going to amend an existing article, which is easier for them to do than introducing a new law, if you like. So it looks like they're going to, again, it's a lot of this is a lot of detail. You probably don't need to do this, but they're going to look to maybe change Articles 63, 64, 65, 66, and 67. And the idea of that would basically eliminate the possibility of giving any new golden visas. And that includes real estate. But not only that, it includes shares, funds, really all the other accesses to get the golden visa. So not just the real estate. We thought it may just be real estate or it might just be residential real estate, but it does look like, and again, this is not written in stone yet because we're still in the amendment phase, but it does look like what they're trying to do is just eliminate the concept of the golden visa, that there isn't a way of getting the golden visa to get residency in Spain. But it does reinforce the fact that if you already have a golden visa, it will remain valid and it can carry on being renewed as normal. So if you've already got it, if you're in, you're in. They won't, and it is in Spanish law as well. They can't change that, which I'll come on to next slide, but they have reiterated that. What you've got to bear in mind in Spain is when it comes to approving this law modification, as opposed to a new law, but this law modification, it is complex and you have to, several bouts going back and forward. You're going to have people, interested parties maybe objecting to certain things. So there's going to be probably a number of changes to this, which may see this change that, that it's not every type of investment option that will qualify, but we don't know. But that will go through some rounds of back and forth. So to summarize that, September the 9th is when we know it's going to go into the legislative process. Once it's done that, it's going to go back and forth, through several rounds of change and challenges. Realistically, and our experience on knowing how this works, it's probably going to be the end of the year. And it might go into next year. I think it would be doubtful it would be much earlier than that because it's just simply impossible the way it works over here. So what this actually means for anybody watching this, and as of now, as of today's date, there is still time to go through. And I'll come on to how long it takes to go through the process of the golden visa. But as we know now, there is time. And a lot of the good things about this announcement is it's now actually helped us understand the time frame, so we can confidently say we know we have enough time, but the longer people leave it, the more difficult it will be for obvious reasons. As I say, if you're a current golden visa holder, under the Spanish law, they can't modify it. They can't take something away from you that gives you a benefit. So they're not allowed to do that. So once you have the golden visa, it can't be taken off you and you can renew it as normal. Okay, so bear that in mind. So if you get it, you've got it. And you can keep it for as long as you want. It's just for new applications, okay? So bear that in mind. But as I say, the most important thing for this slide, if you're looking to do something, we have time, but do it now. And needless to say, and you understand a little bit more as to why this is. If you want to do it, you've got it now. And it's in Spain. I'll come on to this. There's no minimum stay requirements you have with the Spanish Golden Visa. And what that means is really people have been sitting on the fence. They've now suddenly thought, right, I need to move on this now. So we're getting a lot of applications come in. So please bear in mind, if you are interested in doing it, then do contact us as soon as possible. I'll brush over this a little bit. We've got a lot of slides to get through, and I want to make sure we can get through the questions people have asked as well. But just in terms of what we do, and there's a lot of stuff listed there. The idea of us and setting up Holborn Pass to do Golden Visas is that we act as a beginning to end service for the Golden Visa process. So what that means is we submit all your applications for you, we appoint a lawyer, we sort all the lawyers out, the negotiations with that. We look at the best assets for you. So we do our due diligence on all the property opportunities. We tend to, focus on commercial opportunities because they are far less in terms of the tax you pay. And I'll come on to that. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. But we will do all of that for you. We will essentially apply for your Golden Visa. We'll open you a Spanish bank account, which we can do remotely for you. So we can do that for a power of attorney. So we do that as part of the process. We'll assist you when you go into things such as biometrics, where you have to give your fingerprints, which is later in the process. We'll assist you with that as well. We'll get you a tax number that you need in Spain. We even submit your annual tax returns for you with regards to the commercial property or the property that you choose. So we do essentially a one-stop shop, and we can actually submit the application for citizenship further down the line if you want to become a passport holder. So the basic summary of that is that we do everything for you. The idea is if you want the Spanish Golden Visa, we can do the whole process for you, and we have the experience. Behind the scenes, we use a company called Orience. Now, Orience started back in 2013. They act essentially as our administration. Orience specifically were set up to do the Spanish Golden Visa. So that's why they were set up. They have offices in Barcelona and Madrid. So they have offices there on the ground. Obviously, we're down here in the south of Spain. So all this we can do very quickly, and we have all the people and the resources to help get this sorted as quickly as you need it to be done. In terms of the estimated timeline for the Golden Visa, and this is really important. So if we go back to what we're talking about, September the 9th being the key date when it's going to go into the legislative phase, how long does a purchase of a property take? So if we're looking at the commercial properties that we look at and how quickly we can do this, okay? If somebody said today, yes, I want to do it, we do a meeting, we give free financial reviews, we do a free review of your situation. If you want to do it, then it would take, if you look on here, around 3 months. So month 3 to 4 is when you would get the deed done for the property that you have looked at and you like. Okay, so it takes around 3 months to get the deeds done. Once you've got the deeds done, and that's the same story as any whether it's residential or commercial, it does take around that long. Particularly in Spain, we've got August coming up, so it is slower in August. You really have to be mindful of that as well. But we would do obviously all the paperwork. We'd open a bank account during this time as well. We get you the tax number during this time. But after 3 months, you'd have the deed for the property that you've selected. Once you've got the deeds for the property, we can then apply at the consulate for the Golden Visa. Now, once we do that, the Golden Visa itself will be accepted, or you'd have an answer on it within 21 days. It's not something that's normally rejected. At the end of the day, as long as you have the property worth 500,000, you don't have a criminal record, which we come on to, then you would be accepted. There's no reason they wouldn't accept you. So from having the deeds done and then applying, so we've got to register the property deeds. Once we've done that, we submit all your documents. It takes around 21 days, and then you will get the Golden Visa stamp in your passport. So initially, it's a stamp in your passport that allows you then to live and to work and to stay in Spain for a period of 1 year. That's if you do it from your home country. If you come over to Spain, it actually is initially for 3 years, but that I don't want to go into too much detail about that. But essentially, that gives you the Golden Visa. That gives you the initial part you need. After that, what you then need to do, and you can do all that, by the way, without actually coming to Spain. That can all be done remotely. You don't need to come to Spain because we can act as your power of attorney and we can do that for you, do all the bits for you. The one part you would have to come to Spain for is after that, because after that, you set up a biometrics appointment. Okay, the biometrics appointment means you do your fingerprints, you do your photos, all that. So we would accompany you to go and do that as well, because obviously here in Spain, it's particularly difficult if you don't speak the language. We would accompany you to get that sorted. And then once you've done all that, you've done all these other bits here, it normally is about another two months. So once you've got that golden visa stamp, it's normally about another 2 months, and then you've got your actual card. I haven't got mine with me now, but it's basically a card. You can see a picture there at the bottom, which is your TIE, your residency card. So to actually get the golden visa, 3 to 4 months. To get the actual card for the period of time, which is then valid for 5 years. That is, and then you can renew it every 5 years, is around 6 months. So as you can see how that fits in, we have enough time if we start now, but we'd have to be mindful moving forward of how long we'd have. Right, so let's talk about a bit about what is citizenship and residency by investment. So the idea, quite simply, is a country such as Spain will give you residency or citizenship if you invest a certain amount of money into either real estate, a donation, which tends to be less popular because it's not actually such an investment, investing into a business, investing into funds, or investing into bonds. They're normally the way that it's done. But in return for doing that, you are given residency or you are given citizenship. Now, for those who don't know, residency basically is similar to what I've got here in Spain. I was born in the UK. I now work and live over here in Spain, so I can stay over here for as long as I like. I don't have the right to vote over here in Spain, but I do have the right to healthcare, to pensions, to work, to set up a business here. So I have all the main rights you need with the residency card, and that's what your golden visa card is. The way these schemes work, and particularly European schemes, is after a period of time, you can change your residency, so the golden visa card that you have, into citizenship. And quite simply, citizenship is becoming a passport holder of that country. And that would then give you the full rights as if you were born in that country. Now, we'll come on to how you can do that in Spain. This varies from country to country, how quickly you can change this residency card into citizenship. But for all intents and purposes, residency alone gives you the right to do a lot of what you would want to do. Now, as a company, we do all the different programs here, okay? And I've listed them here. It's a very busy slide, but it is important to know, these are the different programs that we do, okay? Now, we do programs outside of the UK, which is Antigua, St. Lucia, Dominica, Grenada, St. Kitts, Vanuatu, Malta, and Turkey. So they're outside of the EU, so they don't give you the rights in the EU. So a lot of people watching this won't be so interested in them. But actually, Holborn Pass, we do that, and it does suit a lot of people. Now, on here, it tells you the different amounts that you need for each option, and tends to be that when it's outside of the EU, these are citizenship programs. So in return for a donation or in return for a real estate investment or whatever it may be, you're actually given a passport. But these passports would be, for example, for St. Lucia or Dominica or Grenada. Now, obviously, these passports are not as strong passports, if you like, than maybe Portugal, Greece, Spain, USA. So they're maybe not as popular as the EU programs. The EU programs tend to be residency programs. And what they do is they change. So they're started as a residency program, but you can ultimately turn them into a citizenship after a period of time. So just to draw your attention to Spain here. So Spain, what you can do to Spain is once you have your golden visa card, you can convert your residency into citizenship after 10 years. Now, for that period of time, you have to live 5 years of the last 5 years in Spain for over 6 months a year in order to change it to citizenship. So it's quite a long period of time. Some people don't even want to do that. They're quite happy with residency, but just to let you know, you can change it. Once you become a citizen, obviously you don't need then to have, for example, the golden visa, a property. You don't need to have that anymore because you're a passport holder. But a really interesting thing with Spain is that you can actually change it into a passport in as little as 2 years if you have a passport which is from an ex-Spanish colony. And I'll come on to what countries they are. But essentially, if you apply and you are from a country such as Brazil, Colombia, Philippines, I'll come on to all the other ones, and when you actually apply for the golden visa, you can actually change that golden visa to a passport in as little as 2 years. So for people that have that ex-Spanish colony passport, this is incredibly good as a scheme because you are becoming a passport holder in literally 2 years. And a Spanish passport is the number 2 passport in the world in terms of its strength. So it's a really good one to have. In Spain at the moment, the minimum investment is 500,000 into real estate or commercial property. Now, that can be more than one. It doesn't have to be one, and I'll come on to that. We focus on commercial because when we're looking at it from an investment perspective, commercial is a lot cheaper in terms of transfer taxes. Furthermore, we've also introduced a offering whereas instead of 500,000, you can do it for as little as 350,000, and this is by having rental income from that commercial property paid up front. So this is really the most popular route we have. We did it to kind of compete at a time with Portugal, because Portugal had a very low entry point of 280,000, as you can see over in the Portugal side of things. I can point the cursor there. That's not available anymore. It starts at 500,000 in Portugal, although again you can do it less, but that's a conversation to be had. But Spain, 500,000, you can do it for as little as 300,000 using some of the options that we have. You can also tag on your children up to the age of 18 and even over the age of 18 if they're dependent. So, for example, if they're at university, we can put them on the application with you. You can even put dependent parents if they're over the age of 65, and we can basically, we have to prove they're dependent on you. You can include them all onto one application. So to make that clear, one application is 500,000 or 350,000. You don't have to have one for each person. It's one, and you could tag everybody onto that one application, which makes it incredibly popular. So essentially, you can start a new life in the EU for all your family for as little as 350,000, one 350,000 purchase. I don't want to go into detail about Portugal because I'm conscious about the time, but when Spain is withdrawn, when a Spanish passport is withdrawn, please bear in mind Portugal still remains an option. And Portugal got rid of real estate as an option, but you can invest into investment funds. And we have a number of different offerings where you can actually do that for as little as 225,000 by having interest paid up front. And there's various mechanisms we can do that with. And that can get you a passport in as little as 5 years, which is where Portugal can be quite a popular option, because Spain is 10 years, Portugal is 5 years, but Spain is 2 years if you're an ex-Spanish colony passport holder, if that makes sense. But Portugal, if Spain does go in time, is a good option. So again, if that's something that interests people, then obviously we can talk through that. So the question is, why Spain? Well, I'm sure a lot of you are here because you have you have a preference for Spain because you've been here, but essentially Spain is ranked number one for quality of life. It's the second most visited country by international tourists. Most people have been to Spain. Obviously, it's the weather, the location is fantastic. It's boiling here today, by the way. It's about 38 degrees where we are here. Bit too hot, to be honest, but it's lovely climate. It's actually the fourth biggest economy in the EU, or 14th in the world. I've lived here for 6 years now, and you really notice the economy here is starting to boom. Whereas when I first came over here, we had obviously a recession globally, really. And a lot of businesses were closed down, or you'd see a lot of empty units at the side of the road where maybe there were restaurants and cafes before. That's not the case at all now. Everything's opening up. There's new business open everywhere. So you can see that the economy here is really booming. It's voted the fifth best country in the world to live in. I don't know many that would be much better, but I suppose there are some. Sixth best retirement destination as well, and the seventh best public healthcare system. Now, both myself, my wife, and her parents have used the healthcare system here, and it's fantastic. And as part of the Golden Visa, you would get access to the healthcare. The Golden Visa scheme itself, just to give you a bit of background, was actually started back in 2013. And since then, I mean, that's actually out of date, that figure. There's well over 12,000 Golden Visa applications approved. So they've had a lot. So it's brought a lot of money into the economy. But now they're feeling that that's it now. It's more important to get, the balance right between the house prices and, the economy of Spain right, and to stop extra money coming in. They're seeing that as being more important. But it's raised well over 3.5 billion in foreign direct investment, which is a massive amount of money. Now, the beauty of the Spanish Golden Visa is you don't need to spend any time in Spain. There is no minimum stay requirements. So where this works really well is if you, for example, are thinking to yourself, well, I want to retire to Spain in 3 or 4 years' time, but not now, but I know the Golden Visa is not going to be there, as we know it's not going to be there, then the idea is you can do it now, and you could essentially don't need to spend any time in Spain. You still keep your Golden Visa. You still have all the rights to come and go to Spain as much as you want. You keep the Golden Visa, but you don't need to spend any time in the country. And that's really, really unusual, because most of these offerings or Golden Visa schemes will request that you have to have a minimum stay. Portugal does. I think it's 1 week a year for that 5 years. But no time with Spain. So particularly good. Anybody sort of sitting on the fence of doing this, but know they're going to want to move to Spain in the future. You can do this through the Golden Visa, and you don't have to spend any time. The only time you have to come to Spain is when you do your biometrics, as we've touched upon it in the timelines. That's the one time that you would be able to do it. You have to come over here and do it. But apart from that, you don't need to spend any time. Any non-EU citizens can apply. I mean, EU citizens can apply, but obviously it doesn't make sense. If you're a non-EU citizen, you can apply. One of the caveats is you have to have no criminal record. In reality, that's not going to be, traffic offences and small offences such as that. We're talking, a proper criminal, more serious criminal record, if you like. What, as part of the process, you have to provide a criminal record check for the last 5 years. So wherever you lived in the last 5 years, you get a criminal record check. It's very easy to do. It just needs to prove that you don't have some serious criminal convictions on there. And as I say, you can include your spouse, your children, your parents, all on to one application. So we've done applications for 6, 7 people with one investment. Now, as I say before, we do all of that for you. So we know exactly what we need to get in order to get this through, so we can get all the information we need from you, and we can process and send that application in. And I will say the back office team in doing that here are fantastic. They really do process things very quickly. They know what we need to do. They're very quick responding, because we have to be to get things through in time. So they're very, very good like that. The benefits of the Golden Visa, as I'm sure you're aware, is first and foremost, it gives you the right to live and work in Spain. So you can come and go as you please, and you can live and work, whether that's self-employed or employed. You can freely travel and stay within all of the 26 Schengen countries. So you don't have to do visas. You can move freely throughout the Schengen zone. However, be mindful of the 90 and 180-day rule. So in Spain, you can stay as long as you want, but if you move into, for example, Portugal, you have that 90-day rule where you'd have to then leave Portugal, but you could reset that by moving back to Spain if you are a Spanish Golden Visa resident. So it makes it very convenient for people who maybe have a USA passport. Instead of having to go reset by going back to the USA, you can reset by going back to Spain, which makes it easier. But obviously, once you get your passport, if that's the route you go, then you can move freely and you don't have any restriction. But yes, you can establish a business in all of the Schengen countries. There is a tax. We're not specifically tax advisors, but there are tax benefits for expats as well. The Beckham's Law, people may have heard of it, is set up in a way that can actually reduce your tax liability. So there are some tax benefits here. We've got excellent world-class healthcare and pensions, and you get access to that as well. So you get access to all of these through the Golden Visa program. Few facts and myths and facts, if you like, of the program itself. The first one is you have to spend time in Spain. Well, I've just covered that. There's no minimum stay requirements in Spain to keep your Golden Visa. Next one, only residential real estate qualifies. That's not true. Any type of real estate will qualify. So that can be commercial, residential. You can even buy a parking space for 500,000, and that will qualify you. But obviously, you want your investment to be the cheapest and the best investment itself, because it's not just about getting a Golden Visa, it's about having a good investment as well. The next one, you must buy one property of at least 500,000. That's not true. You can invest in as many properties as you like, as long as the total is 500,000 or more. Just at this point, if you already own a property in Spain, people always ask this, it can count towards the 500,000, but it has to have been purchased after 2013. And I can check the dates for you, but I think it's around September. It's later in 2013. Also, the value of that property would be the value that you bought it at, not what it might be worth now. Okay, it's whatever would be on the deed to that property, but that can count towards it. There are limitations in where you can invest. No, you can invest anywhere you like, including the Balearics and the Canaries. Next one, the process is long and vague. Not at all. It's actually the fastest process amongst all the EU programs. So you actually get the residency issued within only 21 days. It's just doing the actual purchase itself that takes us sort of 3 months to do. But once you've actually got the asset, you can get the residency issued within 21 days. If they don't answer you within 21 days, it's deemed that it's been accepted. So it's really good from that point of view. And that's why we know we've got time to do it. The next one people sometimes say is that the Spanish program is expensive. It's not at all. Aside from the initial investment you have to purchase, which obviously does cost money, the actual renewals are really cheap. So when you renew every 5 years, we're talking in the hundreds of euros, not in the thousands. Getting your TIE card is like 73 euros. Or some of the other programs can really hit you with other expenses associated. And the next one is you have to live in Spain for 10 years to qualify for citizenship. That's not a true tool. To get your citizenship, if you're ex-Spanish colony, you can do it within 2 years. And we'll come on to what countries that is. So this is going on this slide. So an ex-Spanish colony country, you get your residency through the golden visa. You have to live in the country for the 2 years or over 6 months a year for the 2 years. And if you are an ex-Spanish colony, which is basically Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Equatorial Guinea, El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Peru, the Philippines, Uruguay, and Venezuela. And in addition, Andorra and Portugal, but you wouldn't really want the golden visa if you were from them countries because you already have the access anyway. But from any of them other countries, if you are a passport holder, then you can convert that to a Spanish passport in 2 years. And then ultimately your spouse can convert to a Spanish passport in the 3rd year because they're married to somebody that's a citizen in Spain. So brilliant if you are an ex-Spanish colony. If not, then it's the 10-year. After 10 years, 5 of which you've got to live over 6 months a year, the last 5 years, you can actually convert to a passport after 10 years. But as I say before, the golden visa itself does give you lots and lots of benefits. So a lot of people are not really bothered to change it to the passport. If you do want to change it to the passport, you have to do a basic B2 language level test. You have to do a cultural exam. It's really is relatively simple. You've got to live in Spain for 2 years, as I mentioned before, of your ex-colony, or 5 years if you are not. And you basically get access to the third. Now, it says third best passport. I can actually say as of this year, it's the second best passport in the world. And that allows you to travel to 190 countries visa-free, and you can then live and work anywhere in the EU. So it's a fantastic passport to have, and you can use your golden visa to get that passport. So it's a really good opportunity that we still have available. As it stands at the moment, what are your options? Options are real estate, 500,000. Commercial, residential, as I mentioned before. We can do it for as little as 350,000, and I'll come on to how. Obviously, if you want more detail on that, we'd have to make an appointment and go through it, but I can give you the basics of how that works. The other options is you can invest it into equity in a business for $1 million, a bank or deposit fund or investment fund for $1 million, or government bonds for $2 million. So you can imagine real estate is by far the most popular option. What we're understanding at the moment is that they're just going to get rid of the golden visa, so all these options will go anyway. But obviously, we'll have to wait and see after the amendments are done what that's actually going to look like. But bear that in mind. As I keep saying, we focus on real estate for people. It's by far, I think it's 98% of the applications are for real estate. Okay. Now, this is really important in terms of what we offer, and it's very important that I suppose people watching this understand the different options. Okay. On the right-hand side is residential. Now, we can look at residential options for people, but there's little point. If you want a residential option, you can go and purchase a residential home yourself. Has to be a minimum of 500,000. If you then rent that out, you're going to get a rental yield of around 2 to 3%. That's the average there in Spain. But we don't concentrate on residential. Now, the reason for this is if you're going to move to Spain and you know you've got 500,000, you're going to move straight away and you're going to live in a property, then you don't need to do a commercial option. You buy the property you want to live in, you come and move there, and you get the golden visa, and there's no issue with that at all. If you're going to come to Spain like I do, and you might not be moving for a couple of years, or you might not know where you want to live, initially you want to pay as little as possible in taxes as you possibly can. And the way to do that is not to buy a residential property, because a residential property has essentially transfer taxes of, you can see 0.1, 8 to 11.5%, depending on the region. So depending on the region, it can be around 40,000 more in the cost of the taxes to buy a residential unit than a commercial unit. Commercials tend to be around 1.5%. They're a lot less. So straight away, you make a 40,000 saving by buying commercial. Furthermore, and if we look at a commercial asset here on the left-hand side, ignore the middle one for now, so that's residential on the right-hand side, you have the lower transfer taxes, they say around 1.5%. It can be 2.5% depending on the regions. You get long-term leases for commercial assets, so it makes them more secure. The tenants in the commercial asset will cover most of the expenses, so it's cheaper for the person investing. You're not going to end up with lots of ongoing costs. And your average rental yield is actually between 4 and 6%. So you're talking double of what you make on residential. So if you're not going to live there and you're buying a residential just to rent it out, you're going to immediately be paying around 40,000 more and getting around half the rental yield. So as a wealth management firm, it makes far more sense for us to concentrate on commercial assets. We can also offer on a 500,000. So for 500,000, we would look at the best commercial opportunities available in Madrid and Barcelona. We concentrate on Madrid and Barcelona because we know these areas will have a high growth rate, a high rental yield. So you won't have periods of unoccupancy. And we provide a full service package. So we look after that. We can get it tenanted. We can collect the rent. We can do all that on your behalf. And effectively, you can have a passive income of 4.5 or 4 to 6%, sorry, coming in. And your outlay is 500,000. Now, what we've also done is we've introduced a cheaper option. Okay. Now, the idea of this is this 350,000 option. Now, what we essentially do is we pay 150,000 rental income up front. So it means that a person investing only needs to pay 350,000 plus the costs of the taxes and the lawyers. But essentially, you're paying 350,000 and effectively getting paid 3% up front for 10 years. It's 3% of 500,000 for a 10-year period. You get that paid to you. Now, obviously, that 3% up front is less than what you'd get if you bought 500,000 up front. However, as part of that 350,000 package, all the property taxes are paid and filed on your behalf. The ongoing management is all looked after for free. There's no ongoing costs to you. Whether the property is tenanted or untenanted is not your concern. All the risk is taken by the management team, not yourself. It's a 10-year offering, really. The idea of it is you have to hold it for 10 years. That can be the downside for some people who might want to exit before, and I'll come on to that. But it's a really great option for some people. Now, we also have, and I will say this at this point as well, we have a hotel option similar to this as well, where the idea of the 350,000, 150,000 back is included. This is relatively new, the hotel option, but just to give you a very quick background, there's a hotel chain in Spain called the Soho Boutique Hotels. They've got 28 hotels throughout Spain, including a few near where I am here. They're building a new one in Madrid, and the way that they raise funds is they raise it through private investors. Now, essentially, by using that option, you essentially pay 350,000. You have 150,000 paid to you up front. So I suppose I was confusing on here. It's essentially you have 500,000, but you're immediately paid 150,000 rental income up front. So you've paid 350,000. At the end of 10 years, you get a guaranteed buyback for 500,000. So you know in 10 years' time, you've outlaid 350,000. In 10 years' time, you'll get 500,000 back. There are various other bits that you need to be aware of, but essentially it's a very low risk, secure investment, but you have to hold it for 10 years. But to give you the golden visa, for some people, it's a really, really good option. And yeah, just going down to these final points at the bottom, I'll come on to a little bit more detail with the 350,000 in a sec. The commercial really is what we call a compliance asset. It's something that you can just forget about, you can hold. It costs you less, but gets you the golden visa. As I say, if you're moving for the residential, some people think with their hearts that residential, I want to buy a property. I love the idea of looking at a house that I'd want to live in. In reality, in Spain, that costs a lot more money. So you have to be aware of that. Now, just to go through that 350,000 leaseback sale and leaseback option, again, if anyone interested needs to speak in person, because I obviously can give you far more detail on this. But the idea is it's 500,000 investment in commercial property in Madrid or Barcelona. We tend to look at more distressed properties for that price range. So the value initially would probably be around 350, 400,000 initially, but the property would then be renovated by the tenant that moves in, not by yourself. So the property value would then be around the 500,000 once it's been renovated, but initially it would be lower. But the actual purchase price of the property would be 500,000. Okay, you yourself only have to invest the 350,000, and the actual investment types will be things such as bars, catering, retail, or office units. That's the kind of thing that we'd look at as well. Now, the way it would work is the idea of it's kind of a 10-year option. So at the end of the 10 years, you can actually exercise a guaranteed buyback option of 350,000. So you're guaranteed in year 10, if you want your 350,000 back, you can have it back. In reality, that's not the greatest investment because you paid 350,000 up front. You still get 350,000 back. You've not made any money on it, but it's giving you the golden visa. So it's great from that point of view. But we put that in really to give people peace of mind to know that if there was some disaster within the commercial market, that you're going to get the 350,000 back. So it's basically just a security net, if you like. Option two would be the most popular, is you sell it to the open market at the going rate. Now, if the initial investment, as I say, we might look at distressed properties, but they're renovated properties, their value initially would be around anywhere between 400 to 500,000. After renovation, it should be around 500,000. Then in 10 years' time, it's going to be worth, if you look at property prices, a lot more than that. So most people would sell at on the market rate, but obviously you have the option of exercising that 350,000 guaranteed buyback. Or finally, you just keep hold of the asset, because after 10 years, the 150,000 you've been paid up front has been paid back, and you can then just start to take a passive income and have that income collected for you, just have it as a passive income coming in. You can exit before year 10, starting in year 5, but it's a reduced buyback. So instead of having a guaranteed 350,000 buyback, in year 5, you can see on the right-hand side, it's 175,000. Every year it goes up. In reality, to me, it doesn't really strike me as the best option for someone who doesn't want to hold it for the 10 years. But someone who's looking at a lower entry point with essentially a guarantee at the end of it, it works perfectly for them. And it's been really, really popular since we've been doing it because it gives that lower entry point. The 500,000 commercial option, this is an example of one we did. This is not one that's available now, but we did Bipolar was a restaurant in Madrid. 600,000 the purchase price of this, because the minimum has to be 500,000. Where we're having issues with this now, as you can imagine, the 500,000 price point is the golden visa price point. It's becoming really popular. So to get something exactly 500,000 is becoming more difficult because people are all jumping in to get the golden visas. However, we have our real estate team looking at the best possible options. We certainly don't want to find something and reduce its value just to get increase its value just to get it to 500,000. So we want to make sure it's a good investment. But this is an example of one which was 600,000. The rent from that was 3,050, which was paid as a passive income. Really nice restaurant in Madrid. So we change our holdings all the time. What we do, anyone who's interested, we would send them what we have at present, and then they can select their best option. The advantage with the 500,000 is you can sell it anytime you want without, there's no penalties as such, no contract as such. At the end of the day, if you want to hold it for 2 years, 3 years, particularly if you've got an ex-Spanish colony passport, you can then essentially just sell it, and then you've got your passport, you don't need it anymore. The 350 option, the idea of that's more of a 10-year project. And as I say, there is the hotel option, which is again a bit more complicated, but it works very similar to the other commercial option. But instead of having that sell it on the open market, you have a guaranteed buyback in there of 500,000. You pay 350, guaranteed buyback of 500,000. Have to be mindful of taxes because you'd be paid 150,000, physically paid it. That's not the case for 350. That's just, you don't actually, you just pay 350. But with the hotel option, you physically pay 500 and you physically get 150,000 back straight away, immediately, which can obviously, you have to be treated from a taxation point of view. But that's something to have more of an in-depth conversation about. But do bear that in mind. So that's our offering that we have. Please make a note here of my email address and my telephone number. Obviously, I'm happy to do appointments for people. I want to go through the questions that I've been asked. It's very important, these, because some really good questions came in. But while I sort of get these up on the screen, please make a note of my telephone number, my email, and feel free to drop me an email. And obviously, I can book in an appointment with you when I'm available, and we can go through your individual situation, your individual questions that you have. So I'll just load up the questions that we had coming in. So, but a lot of questions we've had are around the timescales, which obviously I've sort of been through. At the moment, we know that we have enough time. But that's going to depend, obviously, on how quickly we can get applications in. We knew when Portugal changed last year, we know how long these things take to go through the process they've got to take. So anyway, reading out the questions I've had. First required, documents required and investment amounts. So, okay, we talked about the investment amounts, the type of investment options. So the investment amount, minimum 350,000 we start at, or 500,000, depending on the option you want. The documents you require. So as part of the process, we take you through the whole process. The team behind the scenes will say, right, we need this, we need that. Obviously, we need copies of your passports. To open a bank account, we need income or last 3 months slips, it would be, or your accounts. And there'd be various other things we need for anti-money laundering. But a lot of it would just be information gathering and forms that we need to be completed. To start the process, all we need to get we send out a client agreement if you want to work with us, which basically is just a copy of your passport. That's all we need initially. But then we will talk you through the different property options with our investment team. So the whole point of this is that we make it as easy as possible. You won't need to get loads of documents, but there will be things that we will need to get. And the quicker that we can get them back, the quicker, obviously, that we can get things approved and get everything through. So what are all the costs? Okay, so all the costs depend on how many people on the application. If you take, this is very, very broad. I mean, this is not an exact, this is a very much an estimation. But if you, for example, take the 350,000 option and there was 2 people on the application, so just for example, a husband and wife, then if you include all the transfer taxes, all the lawyers' fees, everything, all the costs associated with everything, our costs, everything associated, probably be around 378,000. So about an extra 28,000. So it's not massively more. If you did residential, you'd be looking way more than that. You'd be an extra 40 or 50,000 on top of that. So this is why we're concentrating on the commercial options. The paperwork, it says what paperwork is necessary. We would talk you through, as I mentioned before, on what we would need, but we do all these paperwork for you. We would guide you through that whole process. That's all included in the costs that we would give you. It says, do I need medical certificate or just insurance? We need to set up medical insurance for anyone applying for the Golden Visa. We only need basic insurance. We can do that for you. We don't, it's very, people live in the USA. I know it can be very expensive. It's not in Spain. We know the providers to use, and we'd set up very basic medical insurance for the application. In reality, if you live in Spain, you'd qualify for the Spanish healthcare. So you don't actually need the private medical certificate, but it is something they request for the application. But again, that's a small cost, and we can sort that out for you. Next question, can we still qualify for the Golden Visa if we invest 500,000 in Spanish property before the end of 2024? As mentioned, we've got the cutoff. September the 9th is when it's going to start to go through the period of change. And we reckon we might have a few months after that, but we don't know exactly. We'd keep everyone updated. But as of now, yes, you can still invest 500,000 into Spanish property and get your Golden Visa. How long does the Golden Visa process take? As I mentioned before, about 3 months to get deeds done on a commercial property, a further 21 days to apply and get your Golden Visa stamp, which then gives you a year to come and go and stay in Spain. And then we change that over to the actual card. As I mentioned before, we can go into more detail about that. But the whole process to get the card is more like 6 months. To get the stamp in passport, 3 to 4 months. Next question, will real estate Golden Visa approvals be put on hold while it's in transition? No, the way the governments work here, they're still being approved. So even though it's a transition now, even though it's going through Parliament, if you like, or in the legal part in Spain that is going to go through in September, they won't stop the transactions going through. Everything as it stands at the moment is business as usual until it's actually been formally approved and it's gone through, which we expect to be in the end of the year. The applications will still carry on being processed, similar to what happened with Portugal last year. How can I use property I purchased in 2001? Unfortunately, you can't because it has to be from 2013 onwards, which is when they introduced the Spanish Golden Visa. So you can't do that. Arguably, there might be some legal ways of selling the property to someone, another family member doing it that way. But in reality, you wouldn't have enough time to do. And I don't know you can do that, but you wouldn't have enough time to do that anyway. But it is unfortunate for that. Has the Golden Visa been eliminated for all potential foreign residents in Spain? That's kind of what I've covered in the presentation. It's not, at the moment it's still available, but as I say, we've got the timescales. How long do I have to stay in Spain for a Golden Visa? Can I just be a buyer and come and go as I please? Absolutely. No minimum stay for Spain. Once you've got the Golden Visa, you can spend no time in the country at all. As long as you hold that asset, then you have the right to come and stay here, to work here, to live here, the healthcare, the pensions, but you don't have to, okay? You don't have to spend any time here at all. Discuss the alternative for Portuguese Golden Visa. Okay, that's a webinar on itself, and we do webinars on the Portugal Golden Visa. For anyone panicking about the Spanish Golden Visa and thinking it's not an option, please contact me regards to the Portugal one, because we can talk you through that as well. You can do that for actually a lower amount of money, but obviously that doesn't give you the right to stay in Spain for more than 90 days. So anyone wanting to live in Spain, that wouldn't apply. However, you can get a passport within 5 years through the Portuguese Golden Visa scheme by investing as little as 225,000 through some of the products that we've got. That's by having interest paid up front. Essentially, the Portugal Golden Visa, you have to invest 500,000 into a business or a property investment fund. And there are ways that we can structure that by having interest paid up front and loan agreements, all this sort of thing. It's very complicated, but we can talk you through it. But you can do that, and that remains an alternative to the Spanish Golden Visa. What is needed in place to start the application process? So the way we would do it is anybody looking to use us, we send out a client agreement. And to do that, we need a copy of your passport, your current address, how many people you want on the application, where you prefer, Madrid or Barcelona. And then we send out a client agreement. You sign and return that. Then we can talk through the real estate options. You choose which one you like. And then it's a matter of just information gathering and gathering further bits. But the passport is what we need. But you will need a copy of, as I say, the criminal check as well. And there are accounts, pay slips, a few things like that we need. Remember, with regards to Golden Visa, there is no minimum income requirements. It's just various things we need to open you a bank account and various other things. The risks involved with a hotel investment. The hotel investment itself is probably the lowest risk one, because there's 28 hotels that are owned by Soho boutique hotels. So anyone looking to invest, their money is essentially secured on all of the assets, all of the 28 hotels. So the security is really high. If it was just secured on the one they're building, then arguably you'd think, well, what happens if there's a problem with that? But it's not. It's secured on all of the hotels they own. So in terms of investment, it's very low risk, and the risks aren't really there. What you've got to be more mindful of, though, is it's a 10-year option. So there is no early get out with that. You have to hold it for 10 years, and you have to sell it back in 10 years' time to the hotel for 500,000. The issue to be aware of is because it's income physically paid to you up front. You are paid 150,000, so you pay 500,000, but you're then immediately paid 150,000 up front. Then obviously that will have a tax liability. So there'll be a withholding tax of 19% off that 150,000, which we would have to do, because obviously there would be tax that has to be paid to Spain. And then obviously you need to look at your tax situation. So that's the thing to be aware of with the hotel option. But the three different options all have their sort of benefits and not downsides, but things to be aware of. So that's all I've got time for, because we're literally approaching the hour mark now. You've got my email address there. You've got my WhatsApp details there. Some of you might be watching this because we will send out the link. As I say, please be mindful of timings. Feel free to ask me any questions. I have got another webinar in 3 weeks. I still think, well, we don't know what the situation will be there. We might have some more updates. So please keep an eye out for that and register with that. But I will keep people updated with everything before then.